Welcome back to another edition of The Shift. We are shifting right into the second quarter, and we are 15 days away from Unlocked 2026. And we are joined with a colleague, June. She is a phenomenal business. We're going to get all into the details of that. But for those of you that are tuning in, we want you to do one thing. We want you to hit the share button because everything that's going to be discussed on this episode, you want to share it with other colleagues in your community, with other entrepreneurs in your community, because the information that we're going to discuss is going to be vital for everyone as we continue to grow in the second quarter. Welcome, June. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Catherine. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Listen, Gift of Love Legal is a phenomenal company that you started. Before we get into the name, because I think the story behind why you called it that is important. We want the listeners to know that. But first, talk about you as an entrepreneur. What inspired you to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I love that question. I've always seen myself as an entrepreneur, and I just didn't know when and how I was going to take that step. In fact, I have, multiple business ideas that I plan to implement during my lifetime. And the law firm Gift of Love Legal actually just came to life because I was working at a firm prior to launching my own law firm. And the opportunity came where I had to make a decision. Do I want to take this leap of faith, or do I want to continue working for a firm and always be asking myself the what if, what if? And so I thought, well, you know what? Let's take this leap of faith because I don't want to have to live in the what ifs.
Mhm.
And that's how I started.
I think that's so key, not wanting to live in the land of the what ifs. And I
Yeah.
think that's sometimes we've all been there where we're trying to decide, should I move forward? Should I stay where I am? It's comfortable where I am. It's familiar where I am. And if I step out, I'm going to be entering into the land of the what ifs. But you stepped out and you entered into that land, and what did you manifest?
Freedom to me is very important. And that was the reason why I always knew that I wanted to have my own businesses in the future. I saw friends that had their own businesses and the freedom that they had, the flexibility that they had. And I always wanted that. And I love traveling, I love exploring the world. And so to me, I always thought, having just 2 to 3 weeks a year to take time off, and I have to ask for permission to do that. To me,
Mhm.
that just wasn't what I wanted for the rest of my life. And
Mhm.
so yeah, that was kind of why I took
Yeah.
that leap of faith.
But I think it's so interesting when you stepped out into the land of the what ifs, you
Mhm.
entered into a space of freedom, because that's the word I heard you share. You
Yeah.
saw your other friends that were entrepreneurs. It gave them their time back, and they were building something of purpose. But freedom, you walked into the space of freedom when you entered into the land of what if. So sometimes I know in life we can walk into spaces that feel uncomfortable, or it's like we're not really sure. But
Yeah.
when you stepped out on faith, you entered into a space of freedom, and then you birthed Gift of Love Legal law firm. And so why that name? Where did it, what inspired you?
Yeah. So, a Gift of Love Legal was actually a 40th birthday present that I gave myself. Like I said, I had always known that I was going to start businesses. I just didn't know when. And so, when I was working full time for a law firm, I had started saving up money. And I knew that I wanted to use this money to invest in a business. I didn't know what business it was going to be. I wanted the business to align with my values and something that I was interested in. Um, a couple opportunities came and they fell by the wayside, but I continued to save, and I knew that when the time was right, that money would be put to use towards a business investment. Then when the opportunity came for me to make that decision whether I wanted to take that leap, I thought, well, you know what? This money that I was going to invest in somebody else's dream and hoping that, I could get some sort of return of my investment, why don't I invest it in myself, invest in my own business? So to me, it was a gift of love that I gave myself. Um,
Mm.
in addition to that 40th birthday present. But also how I got that name was when I was trying to come up with names. I don't see myself as very creative when it comes to coming up with names. I may be creative in different ways, but
Mhm.
I had hired an attorney to help me set up my PLLC, and we were brainstorming names. And I asked her, I said, what kind of feelings did you get when you had your estate plan set up? Because Gift of Love Legal is a trust and estates law firm. And so she said, well, when I had my estate plan set up, I thought that I was gifting a love to my son because I
Mm.
didn't want what I went through when my mom passed away. I didn't want my son to go through the same thing when I pass away. And I thought, there you go. Gift of love, right? Like,
Mhm.
and the love, I'm all about love. And so for
Mhm.
me, it's just like, it's the name. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it fits you because how I even, learned about you was through Instagram.
Hmm.
And I noticed that you had a law firm, but it was the post that I saw you were putting out, the messaging was very family oriented,
Hmm.
very community based oriented, and it was definitely giving off energy of love. So it was a different type of energy that I felt from your law practice.
Oh,
But I think it's something interesting that you mentioned earlier. While you were working, you were saving your money because you already knew that there was going to be another step in your life, an
yeah.
entrepreneurial pathway for yourself. So you were already preparing. And this is a message to any other entrepreneur that's out there. You might be working right now. That doesn't mean that that's your ending destination. Prepare for what's coming up next. And that's what you did. You started to prepare. And then there was some possible pathways that you originally thought you were going to go down. And it was a detour,
Yep.
right? And it's okay for a detour to happen. Talk about the significance of a detour when you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think something that I've learned so far in the past 2 years of Gift of Love Legal launching is um, be okay with the unknown. Just trust the process and knowing that, as long as you're making a little progress each day, you'll get there. And what I've learned also is to put self care, my health first, because with anything, right, without health, like if I have a headache, then I love food. I can't even enjoy food, right? Um, so I understand that health is very important. So putting health first. And if there's a detour, if something doesn't happen the way you want it to be, stay focused. Just remember what your end goal, your main goal is. And it's okay. You might, take a little longer, but you'll always gain from whatever experience you experience in life and take those lessons with you and just keep moving
Absolutely.
towards that goal.
And that detour directed you to start your own practice, your own firm, which tell everyone a little bit about your core services.
Sure. So, Gift of Love Legal is a trust and estates law firm that serves women entrepreneurs in Maryland and DC. And so, what we do is we empower women business owners to protect their legacies. Right. As a woman business owner myself, I understand this is your baby. And if you have more than one, you've got multiple babies, right? You put your heart
Mhm.
and soul and time and energy into building these things. So, besides the personal aspect, okay, who's going to come in and take care of your financial affairs if you can't do it for yourself, or who's going to make medical decisions on your behalf when you can't do that for yourself? Um, but who's going to continue to run your businesses,
Mhm.
when you are in the hospital, right, for the next several months? Who's
Mhm.
going to step in and make sure that your clients are taken care of, making sure that your staff is getting paid and things are running smoothly?
Mhm.
And then, of course, after you've left this earth, how would you want the legacies that you've built to be passed down? So
Mhm.
we cover these kind of things through education, right? Through educating what the law says, what can happen, what your choices are, and then empower you to make those decisions. And then we craft a customized, personalized plan based on your goals and what your wishes are. And we emphasize on being a heart-based law firm, meaning that this is not just a one-time transaction that we have. This is a lifetime of a relationship that we build together, so that we
Mhm.
not only get to know you, your family, your loved ones, your businesses, but just everything generations down the line. Yeah.
No, I think that's absolutely powerful. And for those of you that are tuning in, you are tuned into the Shift Podcast Show, and we're joined with a phenomenal entrepreneur, business owner, Miss June, Gift of Love Legal, servicing women business owners in the Maryland, DC area. And I want to thank you because in times past, you also did a webinar for us and a lot of our entrepreneurs, which I know they took away a lot of nuggets. I like to call it golden nuggets, words of wisdom. But for those that's listening to this episode, what are some myths would you say is out there around estate planning?
Two main myths that I see is you have to be a certain age to start thinking or to start having an estate plan done. Once you hit the age of 18, you are considered an adult, right? In most states here. And so that means that you have the right to make your own decisions. And I've spoken to a lot of younger adults where they said, I don't necessarily want my parents to make financial decisions for me if something happened. I want my sibling, or I want my grandparents, or whoever it might be that they feel more comfortable with. Same goes with medical decisions. So once you hit 18, you have the right to make these decisions because you're considered as an adult. So that's one myth. The second myth I see a lot is I have to have a certain amount of money. And sometimes I have to have $1 million, I have to have a certain amount. It's not necessarily true. If you have a bank account, if you are working full time and you receive some sort of retirement account benefit, that's already a beginning, right? And medical decisions, right? You're alive right now. So who would you want to come in and step in your shoes if, God forbid, something happens to you and you can't speak? Mm-hmm. Who would you want to be that person to step in? Yeah. So those are the bare minimum. Yeah.
And, for those that are tuning in and even watching this episode, I know you see on this screen, it's like puzzle pieces that you see. And I would assume when you're putting together someone's estate plan, it's a lot of movable pieces to that. Mm-hmm. How do you help a client move through that process?
Yeah, so I get to know the client. Everyone's family dynamic is different. Everyone's wishes and desires and goals and values are different. Of course, assets are different too. And that's why we personalize your estate plan based on you, right? Mm-hmm. And we help them, guide them through. So even after the documents have been prepared for you, we're not over yet, right? I talked about earlier about the lifetime relationship. Mm-hmm. So now that your documents have been prepared, okay, we need to make sure that all your assets align with this new estate plan now. Mm-hmm. So we get together, we check in, we strategize. Okay, what assets do you want to put into this revocable trust if you ended up going with that route? Mm-hmm. That's one example. Another example is, okay, all of our plans include a 3-year review. So anytime from when you've signed your documents to that 3-year anniversary, we can get together and revisit your plan for any changes in decision, changes in family situations, your desires, and maybe even the law. Mm-hmm. And if you want to meet more frequently than just the 3 years, we can do that as well. Mm-hmm. And then again, keeping you in our world, right, in our sphere. Mm-hmm. So inviting you to Gift of Love legal events. Because education to me is very important. Prior to the law, I was actually working in education. So the law is actually my second career. Mm-hmm. And so, I like to put on webinars that can empower people with knowledge. And so, for instance, the last one that we had was on medical directives, but I invited a medical professional, a doctor, to come speak on this document coming from a medical professional's perspective, right? Because she's the one that actually sees the document come to life, being used, right, at the hospital. So it was very enlightening. Yeah.
No, that's powerful. Now, what is the difference with revocable, irrevocable? I heard you use a term earlier. What's the distinction?
Yeah. So a revocable trust is a trust where you can change it during your lifetime. You can make any kind of changes you want. You can put any kind of assets you want, remove those assets in and out of the trust. And the main purpose of that trust is for privacy and efficiency. So after you've passed away, any assets that are put into that revocable trust does not have to go through the court, which means that your beneficiaries get to receive the assets a lot sooner, and it's private because it doesn't have to go through the court. Anything that goes through the court is public information.
Mm-hmm.
So to a lot of families, it's important because especially if they want to protect their loved ones. They don't want their kids, right, to be exposed to maybe ill will people who can very easily just log on the court's website and see, oh, who just passed away? What did this person leave behind? Who inherited what? And they can
Mm-hmm.
come after your kids or family, right?
Right.
So that's one of the main things: efficiency and privacy. An irrevocable trust is a trust where the main goal is to avoid paying taxes, and it's mainly estate tax. So that's typically for people who have assets that are kind of at the threshold, and they're kind of at the age now where they're thinking, okay, if I were to die in the next year to maybe 3 years, right, until the law changes, my assets could be hitting or be above the threshold. And if I die with these excess assets, my estate could owe some taxes to the government. And I want to avoid paying that. So what I'm going to do while I'm alive now is to gift these assets into this irrevocable trust, which means that it's not as flexible as a revocable trust where you can easily remove assets in and out, make changes to the terms of the trust. This one, once you've put assets in there and have the terms written, it's a lot more difficult to make those changes. And so typically, and you end up losing ownership of the trust. So you're basically gifting your asset to that particular trust. So it's the two main differences between a revocable and irrevocable trust.
And this is why I think it's so significant for anyone listening or going to be listening to this episode down the road. As you are growing your business, it's important to speak with a legal professional. Definitely, I recommend Miss June. She is proficient in all that she does. And again, from what I've seen of knowing her for maybe over a year and some change now, her personal connection to who she is working with is not just another client, right? She's personally invested in making sure your estate plan is crafted properly for you as you continue to grow and build. Again, you are tuned into the Shift Podcast Show, and we are now in the second quarter of the year. June, what are your thoughts? We're now in the second quarter. What are some tips for business owners you would like to share as we are now entered into the second quarter?
I love that question. I was just thinking about that this morning because it's April 1st and it's the beginning of the second quarter. And I thought, one of the things that I've started practicing is I do a time and money assessment, typically at the beginning of every month, where I look back at the previous months. Of course, the financials, right? Where money was spent, money in and out. What changes can I make? What can I continue to do? And then also, how was my time spent? And moving forward, how can I plan for this new month or following months? So that's one thing that I've started doing is the time and money assessment every month.
So listen, we need to do a checkup, as they say, right? And actually even doing a review. How did your first quarter go, right? Doing an assessment of your first quarter. I know when someone is creating their business plan, they're often doing their SWOT analysis, your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I mean, you can do a SWOT of the first quarter, really. What was the strengths of the first quarter? What were some challenges that you faced? Were there new opportunities that availed itself to you? Were there threats? Were there challenges? Were there barriers? What did you face? And I think the first week or so of April, you can do your assessment, assess your financial records, assess what went well as for your marketing and your sales strategy, right? Did you hit those financial goals? And if not, what were some of those challenges, right? I think it's a perfect time now that we've thrusted into the second quarter, we're in the springtime to do an assessment and to do a checkup. As we continue to move forward through this month, we have a business conference coming up.
Yes.
And you're one of the registered VIP guests that will be with us. What attracted you to want to register as a guest?
I just look forward to meeting other entrepreneurs. I know, Catherine, I truly enjoyed meeting you, and I attended one of your in-person events in the past. And then when I had the webinar, I enjoyed meeting all the entrepreneurs on the webinar. And I just look forward to meeting other people like me, right? Who are out there doing great things, providing great services and products to the community. And it's like, let's collaborate. Let's get to know each other and have fun and work together and help each other thrive and grow in life.
Let's build. Just like the puzzle pieces on the screen, right? We're
Yeah.
all like puzzle pieces and we can all interlock together. And on April 18th, that is what we're going to be doing. What is your expectation of that day?
Have fun and learn.
A combination.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, there's going to be, there's a gentleman, he's a visual artist,
Hmm.
and he literally takes puzzle pieces to create his visual art pieces.
Oh.
So not only is it going to be a day of education, it's also going to be an art component attached to it. And his
Mhm.
pieces, I've already seen it, is absolutely phenomenal. And at the museum, because we're going to be at the Maryland Center for History and Culture, they just installed a new exhibit, which is going to be on the level where the conference is. And it's a huge tree exhibit. So I've seen it. Is so I believe what your expectation is going to be fulfilled. It's going to be a combination of interaction and education, and we're going to have a good time, right? We're going to walk away with new connections, new partnerships, new forged relationships to help
Yes.
enhance our mission. When you think about
Yes.
the mission for Gift of Love Legal, where do you see the company growing to?
That's a really good question. Different states. I'm originally from California, and I get a lot of people that ask me, "Oh, can you serve California clients,
Mm,
residents?" And so just serving other women entrepreneurs in different states.
mhm,
And because women entrepreneurs will have different needs as their
mhm,
lives grow. So
mhm,
trust in estates is something that it's my bread and butter. It's what I've been practicing since I started practicing law. So
mhm,
trust in estates, but eventually I see it growing into maybe family law, business
mhm,
law, real estate law, things that women
mhm,
entrepreneurs will have needs. So
mhm.
that's what I see. Yeah.
So it's going to be other chapters, other puzzle pieces of your company that will be unlocking as the years progress down the road.
Yes.
How can a person get connected with you? What would be the best way?
You can go on our website, which is giftoflovelegal.com. And you can also email us at hello@giftoflovelegal.com. And we are on social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Gift of Love Legal is our handle. And follow us, and we love to connect.
Absolutely. And I just, before you go, though, I want to dive a little bit into what you talked about earlier about having that life balance. You talked about the health and wellness
Mhm.
aspect. And I know you have a love for travel. Talk about the significance of that as an entrepreneur to make sure that you do have that balance in honoring your health and wellness. How significant is that?
Yeah, very important, very significant. I find that when I travel, I come back feeling rejuvenated and inspired. Even when
Mhm,
I'm just out and about, I get
mhm,
new ideas in encountering with other people, with other business owners in different cities, states, countries, and I just come back with new ideas and inspiration. Because at the end of
mhm,
the day, I feel like we all are this different, but the
mhm.
same in a way where we all have um, how do you put it? I don't know. I just feel like we're all different, but the same
Yeah.
in a way
We're all
inside,
connected.
right? Yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, that's what I love about it.
Do you
Yeah.
have any fave places that you've traveled to?
So I went to Puerto Rico last year, and I want to go back.
Okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
What was a good sightseeing spot that you went to? Or just was it the food, the atmosphere? What was it for you?
Everything,
Mhm,
food, atmosphere, just learning about the history.
mhm,
Um, yeah, yeah. The site, I went to the national park.
mhm,
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Castillo de, I don't remember the
mhm.
name, but it was a fort, and it
Yeah.
was built back in the 1500s. And so
Oh,
just learning about the history and,
yeah.
of course, the history of Puerto Rico. So that
Yeah.
was very interesting too.
Wow.
Mhm.
And I think that's significant. You mentioned that as you travel, whether it's even a local excursion or to
Mhm.
somewhere far away, you are learning about the culture, you're meeting new people, and in doing so, it expands your mind. You said a few minutes
Yes.
ago that new thoughts and ideas come to you,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
think, and not only think, I know that as we convene together on Saturday, April 18th at Unlock 2026 Business Conference, we have diverse individuals that's going to be in the room. We have business owners from the DMV, Boston, Massachusetts, Delaware, Philly, Pittsburgh, is going to all be under one roof, right? And
Mhm.
you're going to be able to share and exchange. In fact, one of the ladies that's coming, she runs a nonprofit organization called Impact Sierra Leone. She's going to take us to Sierra Leone in an interesting way that day. So it's just going to be powerful. So to your point, when you get beyond your zip code and get beyond what you know, and you get interacted with other individuals, your mind grows. Your interaction with other people helps stimulate creativity, and that is
Yes.
one of the things that I'm really looking forward to for April the 18th, is that when we connect together in that space, our creativity is just going to grow, and it's going to stimulate new ideas and birth new inventions that we can all continue to build, grow, and pour back into the community. And any words of inspiration, as we wind down, that you would like to share to budding entrepreneurs?
Um, Make sure to put your health first
Mhm.
so that you can keep going, keep growing your business, right?
Mhm.
And enjoy life,
Yeah,
um, and do things that bring you joy every day.
yeah. It's
Mhm.
important that it keeps that balance, and it keeps you inspired with what your core mission is. And
Yeah.
again, just to recap for those that might just be tuning in right now to the Shift Podcast Show, if you could just recap your core services before we close out.
Sure. Gift of Love Legal is a trust and estates law firm serving women entrepreneurs in Maryland and DC through empowering them to protect their legacies.
Absolutely. And legacy builders we are, because that is what we do, and we need to make sure it is protected. June, I am so appreciative of you joining us today on this episode, and I can't wait to see you on Saturday, April 18th at Unlocked 2026 Business Conference.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to seeing everybody.
Absolutely. See you soon.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye bye.